Peter.
Hi. Hey, Emma. How you going?
Am I the only one here?
Morning.
Hello. Am I the only one here?
Yeah, we're just waiting on the others to join. There's a handful of others. How you been?
I'm so excited about this. I
Thanks
really
for.
valued your contributions.
No worries. It's been great to see you on the panels as well on the Fridays.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't expect to be on the screen, but that's cool. Oh, sorry. You just roll with it, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I think
Yeah.
it's every Friday sort of anything on emerging tech.
Yeah.
We usually have just a theme or two to go by each time.
Yeah. I think that's smart, right? So then you have consolidated focus.
And these sessions will be similar, so you can feel free to jump in and ask questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, share your views as well.
So I saw the participant limit is 30. Is it just who gets visibility of this? It goes out to the public, doesn't it? Or
Yeah, that's right.
okay.
Yeah, and it's like first come, first serve, and we're just getting these sort of SUAU online courses going.
Yeah.
We're trying to do some more recordings so that they can be viewed afterwards
Mhm.
by the participants, and also I think building up more of that sort of all these modules.
Yeah.
We'll eventually put them all onto the learning platform.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I can tell you have a really strong 360 on the world. Just the way you talk, like you'll drop all the companies and this is going on over here, and but it's so when you're talking about transhumanism, it's so important to have that perspective,
Yeah, the society level. I think it's it's so hard for me even to keep up with what's happening. And
Yeah.
we just got to build it up together.
Yeah.
This collective list with Singularity University really helps to have that network as well. So have you been getting involved as well since we last chat?
Yeah. So what did I? Oh, I've been commenting on the platform and engaging, which I really love. It's not like social media. It's completely different, and it's like a really productive LinkedIn, but super niche targeted in terms of the people in there, if that makes sense. And I think the quality of the outcome of those dialogues is determined by the quality and the amount of input. It's just, when you see a thread and then this person comes in and then it builds. And yeah, I'm just blown away by the people in there, the satellite imagery in Africa. So we can monitor land ownership, and I don't know, it's cool. Just, yeah, really. And that foundational exponential tech course, I think the flow is really solid on it,
Yeah, so, it's the overarching exponential technology and the different use cases and different areas we can apply it to.
Yeah, and JFK's speech. I was like, okay, that's the best video out of them all, other than seeing Christina. It was just yeah, I mean, those defining moments in history, and his I know presidents usually have speech writers, but sometimes I think you can tell when they're actually an orator as well, or a narrator as well. And it was just magic, to tell people the story and bring them on the journey and the context. It was really powerful.
Yeah, you really need that, with storytellers by evolution. And the leaders, the really successful ones, able to find the right policies, the right people in their team, but also be able to convey that to the public.
Yeah, exactly.
JFK's speech is amazing with the moonshots.
Yeah, I got a bit emotional too.
Yeah. We can just make it a conversation as well. We're expecting at least 3 others, but we'll give them a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll share my screen and we can talk about some of these concepts as well, so you can get a sort of a more deep dive on these. Okay. Let's see if we can sync the screen here. Come through okay?
You present like me, or I present like you. Big images, little words.
Yeah.
Oh, no words.
Exactly. That's sort of, I think it's, the best way to convey the storytelling, right? It's get people to, the imagery tells 1,000 words, right? And I think with all the different like-minded people we have in the community, it just helps reinforce the same thing. And it's always hard mentioning these topics to people at work and people in the neighborhood, in our communities, because we're scared that we might sound like crazy people. But it's just the prevalence of this knowledge is not quite there. So we're trying to the purpose of our Singularity University is to make it more abundant for everyone as well, so they can participate in topics like this. Is there sort of specialized sort of interest in this field that you like to expand on, so I can get a sense of how it can help as well to do more after this talk as well?
So what is the definition of transhumanism? Is it our bridge between us and tech and the merging of that? Is that?
So it's the transcending the limitations of our human biology through science and technology. So the trans comes from that sense. A lot of people think it's, because they don't really understand the technology side, they think it's sort of part of the LGBTQI sort of movement, which we're all for as well. But this goes beyond that, beyond the whole, the genders that you abide to, or sort of feel like you might be in the wrong body. This is actually saying, well, what's beyond the biology? What happens when we merge with technology to then say, augment ourselves to the point where we become technology itself? So that's sort of very
I'm really interested by it. I think what the interesting thing you said there is you talked about our limitations. And I've always thought of us as limitless.
This is exactly how we can make ourselves limitless as humans, becoming transhuman.
So but I feel like the mind is limitless even without the technology.
Definitely.
An interesting perspective. I
think that the mind is like the software, and then we can upgrade the hardware to allow the software to compute even more. So right now we have a limitless imagination with our brains, but how can we use those imaginations to then, compound that and also make an impact on the world? So it's kind of like having a supercomputer versus just a local computer. Our local computers, our CPUs in our brains. But how do we get a server going?
What really excites me is what this all means for the differently abled community, bionic eyes, like hearing, like curing spinal cord injury. That really excites me.
That's exactly what we're having.
I've seen documentaries where I've got blind friends and friends who are hearing impaired, so I don't want to seem to speak about it in a casual fashion, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very respectful if someone's got a challenge. But I was watching a documentary and it's like, this person was used to living in that world. So I guess there's some people that have been blind their whole life, which is very different to someone who, say, had sight and lost it, and that desire to regain it through transhumanism. You know what I mean?
That's right. From disability to, getting back the ability to see, and then what we can then do, because it's digitized and, computerized, you can then turn that into a super ability. Sort of where we're heading.
But it's like, is it even a disability to begin with? Because when you don't have your sight, you have to figure stuff out.
Your other senses become completely on hyperdrive.
Exactly. So I think, that whole space and the different dimensions there and the learnings and the amplification, because I think if you're missing one of your senses, it's like your brain goes into overdrive to like compensate and come up with new solutions. So I think as a community, they're very solution oriented.
Just look at the ones that able to translate, that we see every day now, in sign language. Because they're essentially becoming that additional overlay in communication.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, it's really beneficial for society to see the value add
Like,
they can do.
I went to the Paralympics in London, like everything, not everything, but I went to the running, to the blind judo, to the, I don't know if it was blind ping pong because the ball had a bell, wrestling, like, and just seeing the like human capacity with, you know, the legs, the bionic legs,
I
and, you
know,
know,
right? It's just so amazing how they can actually run faster than humans with those awesome designs.
yeah. So that, I think that area of transhumanism I'm very fascinated by. And then my grandfather had Parkinson's. So all the deep brain stimulation, the stuff that Charles Lieber has done with the mesh cone,
Yeah.
Elon, and there's a new
Mhm.
one in France that's done a collaboration with a UK company called Netry. Any of
Netflix,
that
that's right. Yeah.
stuff, I find it, yeah, but I like find all things interesting.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great to see sort of your interest and background and to be able
Yeah,
to frame this sort of talk. So yeah, it's great to see. And then your sort of, I guess, viewpoint around, you know, it's not really a disability. It's something that can help people, you know, being limitless in their biology, how they can actually mentally challenge themselves to, you know, put their brains in overdrive to compensate for other parts as well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I'll go through that in more detail.
Okay.
Yeah, just and as other, I don't want to waste your time. So as other participants come in, or we'll just continue to run with it,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
they can jump in as well throughout the time.
Okay.
But yeah, we essentially this topic is on how it's a next logical step in our evolution because technology, as we talked about, is pretty much unstoppable. It's
Yeah.
accelerating every day, and the really next logical step is to actually merge more and more with it to see how we can compound that and actually integrate that with our bodies. The work I do at KPMG is in automation, so I see
Yeah.
how more and more of the human tasks are being automated away.
Yeah.
Partly my fault, but like you know, as well as the team. But it's actually a natural sort of process for companies to try to optimize the way they do business. And so, if there is a way to reduce their costs or to accelerate their revenues through more automation, then they'll do it. And so, where's the sort of human element that comes in? That how we can stay competitive with these machines and the AI to actually be more productive. So
It's
that's probably where transhumanism will head to as well.
yeah, it's interesting you talk about um that human element because if you implement automation to optimize your business to increase your profit and your revenue, yet you're laying off staff, where is that financing reinvested? So is it reinvested in for good? Is it reinvested in those staff that you let go, retraining them? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
and it's purely, you know, if it's without a purpose, then companies will naturally just purely drive profits.
yeah.
And those profits will feed into the shareholders. That's just the directors, you know, that's and actually have to do that. Otherwise, they'll be, you know, part of their fiduciary duties. They'll be failing those. So yeah, that's just how things will play out unless there is a way that we can reshape society to make it work for everyone. And so that's the main challenge we got here.
Someone else is on.
Oh, that's okay. Let me just let's just probably just work people here. Catching up with them.
Oh
But yeah,
no,
so
that's your screen.
yeah,
Sorry.
that's my chat. Let me quickly put myself on do not disturb mode so that some more distractions there. But yeah, and also, you know, at Singularity University as a faculty, this is my sort of main topic to
Yeah.
drive forward because,
Cool.
you know, I started Transhumanism Australia 5 years ago because, you know, I didn't see a community that existed in Australia. And I was wondering why that's the case. And it's really just, it requires the community to actually build that up for people to come together, share these ideas and to actually build a movement. It started in the US, and the UK, so they've got quite prominent groups around there.
Yeah. I think in
Silicon
Italy
Valley
too, as well.
Yeah, that's right. We've got transhumanist sort of communities all around the world now. So we've come together as part of this global movement. There's a website called H plus
H plus pedia.
Yeah, so where we've actually come together and consolidated all our knowledge, kind of like a Wikipedia, like H plus pedia. So H plus really, if you see that symbol, it stands for humanity plus, or the transhumanism symbol. So
I call Salim Ismail Salimapedia because
Salimapedia.
Literally that man is like an encyclopedia.
I love his book, The Exponential Organization.
Yeah, he's just incredible. Like seriously.
Yeah. And working in the field, I think it was like Optus or something like that. So being able to see that challenge as well, growing in the company, and he probably sees the same challenges as where the profits go. But yeah, we talked about the whole super abilities with transhumanism. Just think about superheroes and how you can use technology to give us superpowers. Whether that's using technology, you can see from the gravity guys that can fly with these propelled air rockets as well, and be able to see X-ray vision. So that's actually a function in our smartphones. How we can integrate that with cybernetic eyes, superhuman strength with our, the sort of exoskeletons like the Hulk, and whether it's super intellect. So we will talk about more around the brain-computer interfaces and also what we can do at the genetic level to enhance our intelligence.
This is so funny because this is what I worked on my whole career. I started working on Marvel. Like I've met Stan Lee before the year he passed away. Yeah, I went. I was like,
Where did you meet him? Was that in the States?
No, that was here at Supernova, I think it was.
Oh, and I was kind of like the Comic-Con in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. And I just literally my first job was Marvel and 3,500 characters in their art archive doing all the product. So like this is my juice,
Wow, so you actually did some of the artwork as well while you were
here? No, I didn't do designing. I was on the licensing side of it. So
great.
the brand extension, but quite often like that's really what reinvigorated Spider-Man and the whole Marvel franchise in the early 2000s. That's when I started on it. And that's why it was sold to Disney, and you see all these other movies, and I worked on it at Disney. And I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. We were talking about like finding alien signatures in space.
Yeah, that's right. So it's kind of like the SETI type search.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Rita. Yeah. Oh, you're right there.
I was like, maybe they're invisible.
Yeah, because some Oh, hey. Have you met Rita and Amber? Amber met.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, through the talks. That's right. But we were just talking about the search for extraterrestrial life, and the Fermi paradox of where are the aliens. So where, but there could be life that we can't actually recognize as life, being say pure energy, because that's where we're heading as future humans as well. Transcending our limitations, which is transhumanism in a nutshell, transcending our limitations of our human biology. And so essentially uploading our mind and becoming pure beams of energy, that might be someplace we might be in the future, so as a sort of conscious species. And that's probably where we might not be able to detect it.
I was like, they might be invisible, like a superhero. You don't know.
And they could be using Dyson spheres around surrounding black holes. We can get more energy. So there's a lot of places where we just got to expand our imagination. But it's very unlikely that we're alone in the universe. And I think the quote was that if we are, whether or not we're alone in the universe, both answers, whether it's yes or no, is terrifying. If we are alone, it'd be really, really scary, because that means civilization ended. If that ends with us, we've got a lot to lose in terms of consciousness in the universe.
Yeah, I'm not scared of the aliens at all.
No.
And I also really, I really love as well what you said about what we consider to, what aliens, what form they should be in. They could just be a type of energy.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Pure, computation.
Yes.
As of being able to have conscious feedback loops because that's, I guess we can define life as conscious feedback loops in some sense. Yeah. That they don't need a physical form. It could just be pure energy, which is also, you know, matter and energy with Einstein's equations are the same thing. But traveling at the speed of light, and, you know, time essentially stops at the speed of light, so they could have infinite time in the universe. But yeah, we were just talking about sort of transhumanism, if you think of it from a mainstream perspective, kind of like superheroes. And, you know, great to hear Amber's involvement with Marvel in the past, and there was an Australian.
And DC.
And DC, that's
all
right.
Of them.
You can see them, like, you know, they've gone from the nerd huts of the comic books to mainstream movies and TV shows. And now with Disney Plus, there's just going to be an endless stream of these envisionings of the future of humanity. So it's really good to get more of these concepts out into the public, but we've got to tie it back to the science and how we actually achieve this for everyone in society as well.
I think it's also important, like, it's okay to be different. Do you know what I mean? Like, people fear difference, I think, or what they perceive to be different, and what you're talking about is very different. But that was always the beauty of these stories, was, sure, they were like these superheroes doing these, like, you know, save the day kind of things, but at the core of it, because I watched a lot on this, right, and it was about the juxtaposition of the vulnerability of them as a human and their emotion and the overwhelm of having the powers and the responsibility that comes with that. So it's a lot deeper than just like the pachul, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The alter egos, like, you know, Superman and Clark Kent, you know, he's an alien, right? And he thinks that, you know, the way he portrays humans, he's the differentiator of the other superheroes, because all the others are sort of, you know, naturally were originally humans and then were trying to hide their superhuman ability. So he's a superhero trying to hide his humanity, like he's sort of trying to blend in with the rest of humanity.
Yeah, exactly.
He's an outsider, which is really special about Superman. Seeing that angle, and also the X-Men, you know, being labeled mutants by the rest of society. So, and even though they actually end up saving the world, right, in the stories, that's all. Like, or destroying it, depending which side you're on.
Exactly. And all of this is actually about psychology. That's what all the comics are about. It was a mirror reflection of the psychology of us as humans, with a fantastical element if we went that way, you know. So I find it really fascinating that you've started here, because I've not seen anyone else talk about it really that way.
Well, my favorite is Batman and Iron Man, because they're humans, but they're using technology and their intellect to, you know, be able to augment themselves and be able to do the sort of detective work or the save the world type of scenarios. And Elon Musk is kind of like, you know, the Iron Man in real life. So there's sort of a parallel there in what he'd be able to do as well, with the right intellect, with the right critical mass and support, and of course the capital. If only all billionaires were sort of, you know, in that sort of altruistic mindset, although it doesn't come without his controversies with the COVID-19 remarks. We'll play into that as well. But that's the sort of...
You totally have to write a comic, and you have the best last name for it too.
Oh, no, the X-Men, that's it.
Or just anything. The Xing thing, you know?
The Xing thing.
Seriously,
I'm going to borrow that, Emma. I think that's we're onto something there.
We need to get you mocked up as a character. Seriously, you're going to take the next level now.
Well, Anuraj, I'm not sure if you met Anuraj, but he's putting together a White Mirror series. So you know how the Black Mirror is very dystopian on the sci-fi elements. He's trying to put together a series on the White Mirror. So what could go right with technology saving the world? Although, you know, we do have to make the storyline interesting, so we have to start with a dystopia and make it a utopia. Instead of the other way around, but I think that'll be really cool. Maybe we'll feature some
series to start with, I think.
Oh my God, yeah.
Can you imagine, like White Mirror comics? It would.
Oh my God.
I need to get you guys involved. You want to try it? You want to try to put together something like a storyboard?
Yeah, seriously.
I was gonna really. There's a friend of mine of my husband's, and he quit his job to actually like write comic books, and I might go and he's got some really cool ones, but he now runs the Melbourne Comic Con as well, because there wasn't anything
No
neat,
way.
and so it grows every year. But I should do, he would probably do a better job of putting the visuals together.
Yeah, let's link up with him. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. I'll connect you to him, and then take it from there. But I think it would be so good to start. I don't know what Anuraj has in mind, whether he's writing or filming or what he's doing, but I think like a graphic novel or comics.
Yeah, we'll start with that. It's the lowest hanging fruit.
Can we
That's
do like a
Transhuman
workshop?
White Mirror comics. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh my god, I think we're onto a business idea, you all.
We should have all characters as well, Amber and Rita. I reckon.
Yeah.
Can
we? No, seriously. When are we doing this brainstorming session?
Do it. I'll set up a time. I'll set up a time with Anuraj. He's been wanting to get this thing moving as well over the last couple of months. So
White mirror. It's like the pure light of dystopia in the distance.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, utopia.
Utopia of the sort of pure energy consciousness we were just talking about.
And Christina's company, before she was thrown into Singularity, is called Utopia X.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. She loves it. She loves that word, and she actually lives and breathes it every day. She wants to create that utopia
totally
with her work.
Walks that talk, doesn't she?
She does.
Right. Transhuman White Mirror graphic novel.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, I'll put it up with Anuraj and you guys. That'd be awesome. But yeah, we could introduce concepts like the fact that superheroes and cyborgs and real life sort of people that have super abilities are real, right? They're among us. People might have lost an arm, but they're able to use bionics to be stronger than your average human as well. So try doing an arm wrestle with this person. Exactly. Good luck with that, right? And so people are turning these disabilities into super abilities, but then, like you said, Amber, they might not be considered disabilities if they're able to consciously play to their strengths and put their mind into overdrive.
See, I don't even think of them as disabled. It's like they actually changed the word. It's now presented as differently abled. And for me, I don't even, the concept of having an Olympics and a Paralympics, like that really bothers me. I'm like, why are they separate? It's because like
the Paralympians can run faster than the Olympians.
It's like just do them together. Like one event, you know what I mean? It's really
that'd be awesome.
Segmented. And
that's what we want, the Transhuman Olympics. That'd be so awesome. Although I'm not sure about the drug testing. They might just have unlimited, whatever you want to do with your body. But I think it needs to be, at a safe level. So as long as it doesn't harm the individual or others, then you should have this concept we call morphological freedom, where you have the right to be able to do whatever you like with your body, as long as it doesn't harm yourself or others.
I think this phrase cyborg is outdated. I think we need to upgrade what we call that if we are to bring people on the journey with us, because I feel like, you know what I mean? It's a new generation. It's a new thing. What is a cyborg? I don't know. It feels like it needs a new story a little bit.
I like transhuman, so I'd be very, very happy to replace that with that one.
I also recently watched Altered Carbon, and this reminds me of like when she loses her arm and then she gets the other one, and that becomes like, because she's very anti, changing skins or whatever they call it.
Yeah, the sleeves.
Oh, sleeves, that's right. And so he they get her a state-of-the-art arm, and that becomes a superpower like weapon, because it's better than her human arm.
I want an arm that like sprays out rainbows and like, you know what I mean? Like kaleidoscopes.
You're like emoting, in real life.
This is sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's also like his surname's Nazareth, but he's part of faculty for exponential medicine, and he's he basically has is losing a lot of his human abilities to do things. So to communicate, what he's got is, it looks like a giant iPhone wrist thing, and then it's a projector on it, so he types and then projects it onto the roof in a kind of normal like conversation over beer that you had, and then we were like a silent disco when we were at the singular thing, and he was projecting this party is awesome, and everyone like we were screaming, no one could he's projecting this onto the roof of the dance floor, and so that reminds me of your projecting rainbows is
that's awesome. Best superpower ever. Like you just turn into an anywhere nightclub. Like you are the nightclub. That'd be an awesome superhero name as well. Hi, I'm Nightclub.
Nightclub introduces white mirror. Oh my god, the white mirror. I don't know. Oh my god, that's awesome.
But, there are biohackers in Sydney. That work with like Meow. And also in the States, Tim Cannon, one of the biohackers, prominent ones. He's actually implanted an entire smart panel into his arm. Like he did it underneath the skin. Which is kind of weird because you're thinking you wouldn't be able to do touch screen, right? But you're able to.
What was his name again?
LED. Tim Cannon. So CANNON.
Yeah, I thought I saw this.
Yeah, he's the CEO of Embedivet. So he's taking that technology, not the smart panels, but he does a lot of implants. So RFID, NFC implants, and he's taking that to animals. So Embedivet essentially is helping farmers track their cattle, their sheep, but also using that quantified self approach to see whether the cattle are healthy or not, or if they're in heat or about to have a baby. So it's sort of like a way to track and keep the health of your livestock.
Yeah,
they were originally called livestock labs, but his motto is that this technology is very safe because it's tested on humans and applied to animals. So humans are the guinea pigs for his approach, but like humans being himself.
Yeah, exactly. Medical biohacker and medical punk.
Yeah, that's
right. What they call him.
Yeah, but I mean, transhumans are real, and biohackers are out there and doing this. And Tilly Lockie, she's very famous now, and she was at SU South Africa. So this company called Open Bionics is able to make a 3D printed tailor-made bionic arm for her at a fraction of the typical cost of these bionic arms. And she was able to promote, the sort of superhuman movies on their launch day. So Tilly Lockie, she suffered from
her arms.
Yeah. She suffered from meningococcal septicemia when she was 15 months old, and so she had to have her arms amputated at a year and 3 months.
I have the coolest arms ever.
I know, right?
Look at her.
She's a superhero. She's a real life superhero.
Yeah.
And she can embed additional enhancements to these. She's got great fidelity, so the elbows area is able to help her control the different finger movements. And she can upgrade those arms and be able to do all sorts of other things. I just want to see her on the gravity, like the jet propulsion.
Yeah, nice.
System, and she'd be able to fly as well.
Look how happy she looks as well. It's like that's what I love about the photo. It's her. She's exuding this confidence, and she's like in her ready game mode,
Yeah, she's in her element. But there's also people that are employing this naturally, and this Muay Thai fighter was suspended for having titanium shin implants. So they were wondering why he was winning all these matches. Titanium in his leg, kickboxing and knocking out.
Who even thinks of that?
It really annoys me. Like, dude, stop kidding. No, I don't.
This is what I mean by the transhuman Olympics, because you could have this, and the other person can have,
oh my God, who's going to write the rules?
Arms, and they can fight it out just like robot wars and there's battle bots kind of experience.
Peter, you're a good human. You can write the rule book for the Transhuman Olympics.
Yes.
Oh, good luck with that.
We have a Transhuman Bill of Rights actually in the that's been sort of worked together by the global movement. So we're like, it's sort of like human rights a bill, kind of like that.
Yeah.
The future of humanity. So the morphological freedom comes in, as long as it doesn't harm yourself or others, and equal access to technology, so that other people don't have an unfair advantage.
All right.
In society.
I need to read that. Is that anywhere readable or?
Yeah. It's just Google Transhuman Bill of Rights.
Okay.
One of our colleagues, Zoltan Istvan, in the US, came up with the initial draft, and that's been supported by the team as well. So he was running for president just so you can get his political, policy platform out there. It's a good way to drive ideas, kind of like what Andrew Yang was doing with UBI.
Yeah.
But he was using it to drive the transhumanism sort of movement and the ideas and spread those. But so I'll put a link in there afterwards as well. So we have implants for all parts of our bodies, and these are in everyday people, whether it's dental implants. Everyone might have known someone or had it themselves. I've got a dental implant with one of my molars. There's hip implants, there's pacemakers to help us, the heart valves continue to have our hearts beat. There's knee implants. So you name it, we're augmenting ourselves already as it is today in the physical sense. And so the whole concept of transhumanism really looks at how we can augment our longevity, so healthy longevity, so health span rather than just more time for time's sake. Enhance our intelligence, so using AI and smartphones and smart devices to enhance what we already have, which is a beautiful brain and human brain through evolution, but how do we put that on to overdrive with technology as well? And then the third pillar is super well-being. So, it doesn't matter if you just live indefinitely in a healthy way or are just super intelligent. You need to ensure that you have that sort of purpose and drive and sort of motivation in life to have meaning in life. So that's sort of the Maslow hierarchy of needs concept. And how do we use technology to ensure that we fulfill all those needs in our Maslow?
So I love symbols, right? Why the plus and why the mountain or whatever it is?
Arrow. So the infinity makes sense. The plus is usually just a way to enhancement of the cognitive brain. So the Humanity Plus is another organization in the US.
Oh, is that
part of the transhumanist movement? So you'll be able to see that plus symbol with the H sign. So that's human plus. And then super well-being, that sort of looks at that Maslow hierarchy, right? So that's sort of the symbol attributing to that.
So, this is interesting. What does it mean to have super intelligence? Is that the capacity to love all without judgment? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Emotional and, sort of intellectual side of things. The super intelligence side of things, if you think about just what we currently do with smartphones, we can able to Google things and reach the collective knowledge of all of humanity. Right? So that sort of is a way of transhumanism because we're able to access that knowledge through our smartphones. The challenge is bridging that fidelity and the input-output lag. So right now we're limited to our thumbs and fingers to type away at the smartphone. And we have our inputs through what we see on the smartphones and what we hear. So that input-output is very limited in the speed at which it can communicate. If you think about like a cable, right? You can have different versions of the cable where it's USB 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. With each iteration, the bandwidth expands. And come up with the internet, we used to have dial-up and broadband, and now it's the NBN, and eventually we'll have 5G as well in Australia in our networks. So it's expanding that bandwidth to what we can access input-output to technology and the internet. So kind of like in those sense.
So your speed of understanding Oh, sorry, Randy's here. Sorry.
Hi, Randy. How you going? Feel free to pop your video on if you like, Randy, and jump on. And this, it's a very interactive session. So
Yeah, the speed of understanding, your speed of exposure to all walks of life. Like for me, like super intelligence, I mean, it can be many things, and I guess it means different things to everyone. But that ultimate form of intelligence, to love without judgment, unconditional love, which is what Christina talks about. I mean, how else do you get to utopia? You eliminate hate through that amplified love. It might sound cliche, but I think like when you strip it all back, like to fundamentals, you know, and it's like when those superheroes go off and do what they do, it's like duty, but duty is driven from love, you know, and care. So yeah,
that'll come in the sort of super well-being, because if we once we get there, we'll show the Maslow hierarchy, and we see there's self-actualization. So you're at a point where you feel you've achieved all that sort of that purpose and meaning in life. But then the next level above, which is rarely talked about, what Maslow actually published before he passed away, was self-transcendence, which is helping other people self-actualize. And that's the sort of the fiduciary and the duty that you talk about, you know, superheroes. It's unconditional love. It's what you want to do for other people to help them, you know, fulfill all the different gaps in the Maslow hierarchy of needs as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tony Robbins says the same thing too. I've done Date with Destiny and all that jazz with him. And it's the highest level is contribution.
That's right.
That's when you've become.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, so we'll explore each of these in more detail, and then that way we can sort of talk more around that sort of duty as well at the end towards the well-being. So how I got involved with transhumanism, just a bit of background. So I was, you know, I was a university graduate, and I worked at Deloitte actually. So I joined Deloitte back in 2009. So I worked away, you know, in corporate. Essentially, you know, climbing the corporate ranks, the ladder, you know, getting promoted a couple of times, and we're just celebrating with a colleague after getting promoted, and we went to KL in Malaysia to celebrate. Just you know, we were like both very happy. The first night, actually, we dropped our bags at the hotel and then went across the road to the bar, and it's this Asian heritage row over here. Yeah, so it's got a very vibrant nightlife. So yeah, we finished up there, and it was about 3:00 in the morning. So we just decided to head back into the hotel. And when I got to the ground floor, and you know, we were a bit tipsy at the time, I just felt a huge knock in the back of my head, and I was knocked unconscious. And I woke up. I was in the hospital, and there was just, you know, wires and things coming out of my body. There was just, you know, all the fluids that were essentially draining in. I found out that we had been mugged that night, and I was almost bleeding out. And luckily, you know, my colleague had called the ambulance, and with the help of the local, got me into the ambulance and safely into the hospital. So it was a very sort of near death and wake up call experience for me. Figuring out that how fragile the human body is, that I could have essentially died that night, you know, in the spirit of celebrations. You know, would have been in my early 20s at the time. And essentially that sort of drove me to thinking, well, if that's how fragile life is, you know, all the things that I had accomplished at the time and what the future was ahead of me at the time could have been ended right there. And I thought to myself, well, what if I was also, you know, mature in life? Like, you know, if I was a healthy 80-year-old, I'd still might want to continue on and, you know, just at least see the next day to see if I would still be keen to explore more in life. So yeah, so that's the sort of that experience I had, and I went back to work and over a couple of weeks after recovery, and looked into more and more about how do you actually use technology to enhance the way we might, you know, eliminate this fragility and this sort of limitations that we have in life, whether it's, you know, just physical fragility or the biological sense in getting older and essentially dying all the way through our life, right? It's a slow death towards the end. So yeah, that's sort of my motivation since then. So I joined Deloitte's Center for the Edge, which is looking at sort of what are the sort of 3 to 5 year horizontal technologies that we should be looking at, whether it's AI or healthcare or the Internet of Things and blockchain, all these emerging technologies that might have an impact on society and also relevant for business. But that's how I got involved with Singularity University and transhumanism through my research. So I did a lot of research in AI, on longevity through what Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis had been talking about, and then explored, well, what's there in Australia that's actually something that we can put together as a community to drive this forward. And I couldn't find any. So in 2015, I'd set it up, Transhumanism Australia, to see those like-minded people. And I'm just glad to be part of the Singularity Australia community now as well, to continue to drive that forward with like-minded people. So yeah.
What an amazing story. And obviously that experience of trauma has been a key driver for you. And I imagine there's not only the physical recovery, but the psychological recovery and implications and working through all of that. I guess the violation of self and just, like you say, fragility and vulnerability. And quite often it's that contrast, stark contrast, that actually creates like this beauty in a human to do great things and learn more and be more and give more. And what I find interesting is this technology that talks about erasing memories. I can't remember who's been working on it, but it's like, I thought about that, and you would definitely have a perspective, I think, on this. But imagine if you could have eliminated that trauma, the traumatic memories that suck life out of you, perhaps for too long. I'm not saying you, but just generally, and allow you to move on quicker with things rather than, because some people deal with their trauma for decades. At the same time, it's also like fuel for creating the best in you, you know what I mean? Because there's the contrast and like the, what do they call it? The opposites and all that sort of thing. So what do you think about that?
It's kind of like that movie Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind with Jim Carrey, right? You eliminate the memory of the loved ones that you've lost. Even though that takes away all those sort of learnings along the way and your life experience. And then I think there's a Westworld season 3 where they talked about, everything that makes a conscious being, whether it's the guests or the hosts. And if you take away their memories, that's essentially what makes them them. Because if technology enables you to go in and out of any of those sleeves that Anne Reardon talked about in Altered Carbon, or if you're able to swap out your physical embodiment of what it is to be yourself, then your memories are essentially what makes you you. And eliminating those could be a way to treat those sort of short-term challenges you might have to be able to rehabilitate. But once you do, I think it's worth also preserving some of those learnings along the way.
I guess it's what would you, because I mean, there's so much learning in trauma, isn't there? And how you react to it and how you grow from it and how you deal with it. And no one just has one, there's little mini ones along the way, but it's like, say, for example, if a woman was attacked by a man or vice versa, I think there's some things that people just don't really need to remember. It's just like, how would you, because it looks like we're going to have the choice to do it, how would you choose what to eliminate versus keep?
How do you, it could be the case where you can eliminate some of the really like visceral, like sort of emotionally damaging parts of it, but keep the messaging to a point. I think that'd be also a really good balance. And at the same time, you might not have to go through the physical trauma in the first place and just implant those experiences and learnings in the future. So that's something else we'll talk about in terms of the super intelligence side of things. So how do we implant potential experiences that motivate us in the way that we go about our life?
Yeah.
Without having to go through that physical trauma in the first place. It's also
well, we're going to have utopia.
That's
we're
right.
We're going to have utopia, so there'll be no trauma, and there'll be unicorns and rainbows. And we'll be skipping in the streets with the robots, singing like, I don't know, somewhere over the rainbow, or like whatever,
Yeah,
I can't wait
and
to
sometimes
make
you don't even need technology to do that. Like you see psychologists and psychiatrists, actually get people to have false memories through that sort of deep therapeutic session. People's memories are so easily manipulated and tricked. I think there must be a good balance using that approach, and how we can use technology for good as well.
Wowsies, what a session.
Yeah. But so I'll touch on super longevity. As I was sitting there, I guess lying there in the hospital and thinking about my life and vigility and how we actually go about it. So, I was just this is the sort of thing I put together for the TED Talk at TEDx Melbourne. The fact that if I told you there was a disease out there that was killing over 100,000 Australians every single year, right? You'd probably think of COVID, and that's like the equivalent of a 747 in Qantas, crashing to the ground and killing everyone on board every single day, right? You'd be outraged. You'd be like, well, what are we doing? Why are we not in lockdown? Why aren't we doing more to find a cure to this disease? And then at the same rate, there's actually another 120,000 people dying every single day all around the world, not just Australia. And it turns out that this death, the cause of the death, is actually the aging process itself. So people die naturally of aging. There's 100,000 people every single day dying everywhere around the world, because it represents 2/3 of all deaths all around the world every single day and year. And we say these are natural causes because they're things like, cardiovascular disease or Alzheimer's or cancer that essentially arise due to the aging process. And we say, well, they were in their 80s, they had a good innings, and they essentially pass away. And that's justified because everyone else dies in that age. And, it's a natural way of life. So that's just sort of the narrative that I like to do today as well. The narrative is that we're born, we grow up, we meet the ones we love and might have some kids, or, adopt some kids, and we grow older, and the kids might have more kids and become grandparents, and you're meant to just pass away. And that's of cycle of life. Right, and the frailty that comes with it. We think of old age, and we wouldn't want to live longer if we're in that sort of physical state of deterioration. So we don't want to live beyond 80 because we associate old age with unhealthy biological conditions.
I don't really, and the reason is, well, like there's the reality of it, but my grandpa was a world masters athletics competitor when he was 74. So he was like out there throwing discus and shot put and javelin. And I went to Italy for the world masters athletics championships. And so my grandma, so I saw a guy who ran with Carl Lewis at the Olympics. There was a bunch of like crazies there. And then a 92-year-old guy from Brazil, 92, he looked like he was 70, like literally. Frederico, oh God, I forget his name. There's another guy in the UK, 92, like lean muscle. And he ran the 100, it just looks, 70, maybe 65. He ran the 100 meters in, 18, 19 seconds. And I was like, he's nearly 4 times the age of Usain, and he's only running like double the speed, It was
in his 90s.
92.
See, that's what we need, to continue to, keep in a healthy condition, right? So there is a science to it. It's called exercise. Get a right number of sleep, eat healthy, and exercise. It's not rocket science. But those are sort of the exceptions, right? If you think about everyone else in the world, even in the history of humanity, the average living age was 30 in the 1800s. You in your retirement age by your 30s, because you would have been a grandparent,
Yeah.
and you're expected to have died then. But the average healthy age is extended since then because of science and civilization and nutrition and understanding of how to stay healthy. Germ theory, right? It's very important. And so now it's 80, and he's still extending to that extent, except maybe in the US due to the suicide rates over there, which is really sad. And so how do we actually use that sort of approach to? Yeah, that's Federico Fisher. Is that?
Yeah, I'd love to know what he did, what
That's
he's done. Do you know what I mean? Like, look at
Is
that
he
body.
He's still around?
Yeah, I think so.
That's
There's
awesome.
another guy in the, just, I don't know, just so fit. It's just at 92. Like, what is it in Brazil? Is it the food? Like, obviously he's working out every day. I don't know what is
That's
his
what it takes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, above all of that, whether it's sleeping well, eating well, exercising, there's actually a lot of science being done right now, and in successful experiments being done on animals like mice and other mammals, to show that there is a way that we might be able to slow the aging process itself, and also potentially reverse that. So that's what I'll talk about on the super longevity topic. Because if you think about the human body, it should follow the realms of physics still, right? Like there are no experiments currently being conducted that can positively show that we're not, outside the realm of physics. So we are all made of the same compounds, the molecules, the atoms, the particles that we know of physics today. And so in our bodies, there are the cells, millions and millions of cells that essentially, are replicated. So that's how we grow and continue to live. There are millions of copies of these cells happening every single second as we speak. And this is a picture of stem cells. So essentially the blueprint for that makes everything in our bodies, especially when we're kids, as inside the womb. These stem cells can become all the parts of our bodies and the organs and the way that works in our bodies due to our genetic code. So this is all sort of, from a physics perspective, understandable, right? So we sort of can boil it down to this sort of physical concepts from a scientific perspective. And the experiments that have been done on mice, sorry to show this big mouse on the screen, but they've actually shown drugs like NAD+, which is a coenzyme in the body that exists purely to help the repair process as our cells continue to duplicate. So the millions of cells that are duplicating, think of it as a photocopying machine, and you're photocopying a page that has lots of text on it. And you're photocopying that, and then you're taking the copy of the photocopy and making another copy, and use that copy to make another copy and another, like millions of times. That's how our cells work. And eventually the text just loses fidelity, right? Because you make minor shifts in the pixelations and you can't read it anymore. And that's what happens to our cells. And that's the cause of the aging process. It's the buildup of error. And when our cells can't read themselves anymore, they can either become senescent cells, which is essentially like zombie cells in the body, or they become cancer, right? And grow continuously, and that's essentially what affects the different cancers in our body. And senescent cells also impact the cells around them, so they turn other cells into zombie cells as well. So that also causes the aging process. That's why we have frailty. That's why we have gray hair and all the attributes that we know today of old age. And that's a sense of how the biological clock can be measured, which has been done in experiments to actually show the biological clock of each of these mice and also humans, essentially accelerating as we get older. But yeah, science and experiments have actually conducted on NAD+, and it's shown to actually slow down the aging process in mice. So NAD+ levels, when boosted, have actually shown a 30% increase in the healthy lifespan of mice. So mice typically live around 2 years, right? So they're
How do
quick
you
to,
spell that? Sorry, ND plus?
sorry, NAD plus.
NAD.
Yeah, so it's nicotinamide adenylonucleotide.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, and there is currently a drug that's been experimented on humans, so trialed on humans, called NMN. So that's a precursor to NAD plus.
Yeah.
And that's what David Sinclair's team from the UNSW and Harvard Medical School has been publishing on and doing human trials on recently. So this is David Sinclair. This is Dr. Lindsay Wu, who was due to actually speak at the last year's summit at Singularity in Australia. David Sinclair is based at Harvard, so he couldn't attend, but we might be able to get him to come virtually in March next year.
Cool.
To talk about some of these concepts. He's spoken at Singularity U Global Summit as well, and also Exponential Medicine.
Yeah. Nice.
And he's just published a book called Lifespan. So if you want to check that out.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant book, just essentially going through that same concept of us being part of the physical world and then the current research that's been done.
What's his name again? Sorry.
David Sinclair. Yeah, and he's also based at UNSW, part of their medical school as well. But he comes in as on a consultant basis. And Dr. Lindsay Wu does a lot of the research here in Australia.
Oh.
But yes, they're showing, with NAD plus levels, 30% increase in healthy human lifespan of mice. And so he's actually taking it himself right now. He's giving it to his families.
Oh,
Yeah, he's giving it to his families because he's sort of pretty confident that it's working, but it just needs the sort of right sample size and the human trials to show its efficacy. Obviously it's not harmful from what his experiments has done so far, but that also needs to be, go through the human trial levels. So that's the phases of trials that need to do. So they've done the animal trials, then they need to do the safety trials and then the efficacy trials. So that'll take a few more years before it becomes, FDA approved, in the US or the TGA sort of levels in Australia.
Why don't we do human trials first? You know why?
Yeah, they always start with mice. Yeah, because they don't want to harm the humans in case it is not safe. So they want to see if it works in mice. One, being safe on mice, and then two, being actually works in mice. And mice share 99% of the genetic code as humans, even though they look so different. But that's the 1% difference that essentially shapes everything in terms of the physical features.
They don't have a choice in the matter, though, do they?
That's the sad part. Exactly. The animal testing, right, is just a real disappointment in science, because now, if you think about all the COVID testing as well, that's all been done on monkeys. I'm not sure if you've seen that movie Contagion. Yeah, it's essentially it feels like Contagion was like a few years back, but it feels like a prophecy of what's actually happening. There was, the infection rates, the R0 was explained, the spread, how fast it went through all around the world through that one person, patient 0, that contacted from a bat that pooped on some pig food and the pigs ate it, and then the chef cut the pig up, and then it transmitted to the person, which is Gwyneth Paltrow, of all people, who's not very scientific. She's actually a homeopath, but let's just leave it there. But yeah, so that movie actually portrayed how animal testing was done and all the monkeys that actually killed to try to find a vaccine. And eventually they did. But it just shows the sort of horrific animal testing that's happening. But with technology, hopefully we can actually do things like 3D printing of cells, so we don't need the animals to do the testing.
Love that. That.
That's how science and technology should be used. Yeah. But yeah, in the meantime, they're doing transplants of pigs, of their parts, organs. So they're actually trying to genetically edit pigs to make them compatible with humans, which is really scary because
Martine's working on all this, right?
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
And people are already getting these transplants, whether it's liver transplants. They've just done the liver transplant between a pig into a human, and they're doing that way of saying how they can, make these pig organs more compatible with humans by genetically editing human DNA into the pigs. Can you imagine that? If a pig accidentally got some human brain memory, so like an actual human brain code, like DNA into them, they might start, exhibiting more traits like a human, which is really, on the downside of science or what they're doing. But that's the sort of transition of trying to keep alive right now. So people are getting all sorts of transplants, lung transplants, heart transplants, liver transplants. It's any part of the body that starts to fail, we go on the waiting list waiting for a transplant. And that waiting list just keeps on building up and up and up. So we
what
need
did
these technologies.
Robin Williams had, what did he had? Where did he get his heart?
Heart? I'm not sure. Robbie, the singer, right?
No, as in the comedian that passed.
Oh, the one that committed suicide?
Yeah, he had, what did he have? I'm just looking it up.
Yeah. I didn't know he had a transplant. But it's, a lot of people have had transplants, and people, I'm sure there's people that we know, or the people that we know, have had it. So, yeah, the animal transplants is sort of the way to go in the meantime. But yeah, this is the 3D bioprinting I was talking about. So this won the Good Design Award. They were at the summit last year in October, called the Rastrum. So this company.
Yeah, a cow. Sorry,
he got a cow transplant. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I thought it was a cow.
And was the heart or liver or
heart?
The heart. Wow.
Yeah. It wasn't too long before he died either. Like within a 5-year frame, I think.
Yeah. Well, at least wasn't at least he managed to get another 5 years.
Yeah.
Healthy years in his life. But yeah, this will be the technology that will be able to do the animal trial instead of animal trials. We'll be able to test it on actual human cells. So, we can grow these stem cells in a petri dish, and we can do experiments like for cancer research or for, or sort of growing organs as well. So there's a company in the US called Organova, and they do 3D printing of livers and others. So micro livers,
really?
tiny pieces of it, yeah. And they can do drug trials on those.
So I have someone in my family that has diabetes. Is that to do with the blood? No.
Diabetics, I think, there's quite a lot of research been done in terms of how to develop the drugs, the insulin drugs and others, to see how the body will respond. The key for this is 3D printing allows it to be better simulate what it will look like in the human body. Because typical experiments, they would do it on a petri dish on a 2D level. So instead of 3D, it's 2D, and that just, it might have some false positives in terms of the efficacies, because it's on a petri dish and it's not actually replicating what it would be like in a human body. And so this way they can actually do more accurately.
So pancreas and kidneys.
Yeah.
What's that company called that's doing the livers?
Organova.
Organovo.
Yeah.
And how many people? Well, I guess Martine's working on it, right? So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, wow. We've got 20 minutes left. I'll just try to race past these slides, and then we can go through those questions as well at the end. I think I've got a few more slides to run past. If that's okay with you guys, is that all right? I'll just see if we can cover as much as I can. But if we don't get through it, we can always have another session.
Yeah, we could do a part two.
We'll have
don't want to rush it.
This is a recurring one, so it'll be a monthly recurring module. So I'd be keen to see you guys again as well. We can add to this discussion. So the other part I want to talk about is CRISPR, the gene editing tools. So that's, gone mainstream in terms of its appeal. This will be like, when we're talking about the photocopier, instead of using that piece of paper and scanning it again, you'd have the thumbstick version of the document. So you'd have the actual software version of the copy of the document, and you'll be able to actually edit any of the letters inside the document. So CRISPR gene editing is a relatively new technology that's come online. It allows you to essentially edit the genetic code of the human body. Because we've done whole genome sequencing now, so that was a few about a decade ago, that costed hundreds of millions of dollars initially. But now the price of whole genome sequencing is less than $1,000. I've seen companies actually offer it for 200 US in the United States, called Nebula Genomics. So you can actually, rather than a 23andMe snippets of your genetic code, it's the full the whole genome sequence of it.
How much was that?
$200. Nebula Genomics. And
Okay,
they also
yeah.
offer it as a subscription service so that you can always get updates of what your genetic code means based on the research that's been done out there.
So who are the biggest players in this space?
Illumina is the wholesale type whole genome sequencing company.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually listed on, I think it's the NASDAQ.
All right.
And yeah, so like these guys, once we're able to whole genome sequence it, and then we start to understand what traits and what attributes and what potential genetic disorders are caused by our, errors in the genetic code.
Yeah.
We've actually come up with a solution to actually go in and edit it. So the CRISPR-Cas9 was the initial sort of breakthrough, and he used that sort of Cas9 type of bacteria to go in that actually snips away certain parts of the genetic code in this double helix and then replaces it with the one that you want to edit it with. So it's kind of like the cut and paste in the document. When we talked about earlier about NAD+, that was just cleaning up the errors and getting white out, right? When we talked about, say, other drugs, there's other drugs like metformin and rapamycin that extend the healthy lifespan of mice as well by 30%. But those drugs essentially just trying to make the document clean and reducing those errors. This is actually keeping the fidelity of the genetic code, so there are never really errors. You can continue to edit that document as you like. And, this could also be one way to treat COVID-19, because the way that COVID comes in as a virus into our bodies is through this sort of key and hole approach. So the virus tries to go in and fit inside our biology through our cells. And if we gene edit that sort of our cells to actually block out that key and hole approach, then we might actually be able to, make ourselves immune. So this is CRISPR actually trying to apply it in today's problems. At the same time, we've seen in China that actually applied CRISPR gene editing to embryos, and actually people have given birth to children. In China, it was Dr. He. He did it without the sort of regulatory body's approvals. But when he was talking to the parents, the father of the unborn child had HIV, and they didn't want to pass it on to the child. So, he asked Dr. He what he could do, and Dr. He suggested this approach. It wasn't very well understood by the mum and dad at the time, but they wanted to go ahead with it because it would mean that the child could potentially be, not to contribute the HIV. And it's a particular gene called CCR5. And CCR5 gene also has a minor enhancement of intelligence, as it's shown from the research. So that could also have played a role in their decision to go with that approach. So it could have been pitched that way by Dr. He. And yeah, so there were 2 children actually born out using CRISPR, and potentially this might mean these kids are immune from HIV, but because of the error rates, you actually don't know the efficacy of that approach yet. So it's going through a lot of scientific debate and the ethical debates right now on whether to go ahead with that. We know in Russia, they're actually they're trying to pursue this approach. The Chinese government said this is not acceptable and wasn't directed by them. And Dr. He is in a lot of trouble right now. He's in a house arrest, and we'll see how that plays out as well. But yeah, we can imagine what sort of the challenge might be if Chinese government does go with this approach, because it could mean the division of societies, because you could have super intelligent babies or, genetically superior traits, right? This goes back to the sort of World War II issues when we talked about, eugenics and all those sort of discussions. The movie Gattaca, like the letters in Gattaca essentially is the genetic code. So the A, C, G, and T, those sort of letters are the genetic code, the 1s and 0s equivalent of our human body. So if you're able to edit those, and it means that you actually divide society into the intelligent and the normal, the natural, right? So that might actually mean an actual division in humanity. But yeah, that's sort of the sort of ethical debates that's happening right now, and we need to be able to be equipped with the knowledge at least to show society and shape society the way that we want the outcomes to be, which is really important right now. On the intelligence side, we talked about how we're already transhuman with our smartphones and access to the collective intelligence of all of humanity through the internet that we've continued to document. And so it's just about that input-output lag that we talked about earlier, Amber. The way that we actually need to see how we can better integrate ourselves with the technology to get to that next level. This part will be talking about that. Right now, artificial intelligence is becoming more and more accessible. So, you got companies like Data Robot that essentially allows you to do a drag and drop approach to machine learning. So you don't need to have a data science background. You just need to have a lot of data, training data, they call it, to be able to make predictions on the future events. So if you have a lot of Excel spreadsheets that have lots of columns and rows, you're able to use Data Robot to make predictions depending on what sort of detailed information you have. This could help you increase your revenues and predict what sort of stock to have in your shop, and better anticipate when you'll be able to save on costs as well.
I like that bonsai AI. That looks nice.
Yeah. There's so many of them. Like there's just came out the AI 50 report. But if you see the whole machine intelligence landscape, it's in the thousands and thousands of AI companies out there, because it's so democratized. It's just about trying to find a use case of these AI approaches to help businesses or help people be more productive. And you got the major tech companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft with their cloud platforms that offer this automated machine learning approach as well. So, the intelligence, I guess, machine intelligence explosion since 2012 with the advent of deep learning and making it actually practically useful has meant that we have these tools readily in our sort of smartphones as well eventually. But what we need to then do is how do we use these for insights and help us make the decisions. This is where we can get to super intelligence, and how do we actually integrate better with all this information that's coming into our hands, right? We have so much news to read now. We have so much information flooding our different channels, but how do we find the right insights from all that information, all that noise, through these tools is the way to go.
What is super intelligence? That keeps going on in my head.
Yeah, I mean, anything super in this definition is beyond human. So it's like more than your typical human, or even the most intelligent human. So think about Einstein or any of those geniuses out there. Super intelligence is a term used by Nick Bostrom in his book, where he portrayed the ethical debate of what would happen if you have an AI that's more intelligent than humans. At the same time, he talks about how super intelligence could mean just better at a particular task, and that could also be dangerous. For example, he painted the picture of the self-replicating paperclip machine, and how that machine can then replicate more and more paperclips and continue to do that until the entire world becomes one big paperclip, or more and more of these paperclips. And humans would just be matter and energy that they would consume to make into paperclips, because that was the task assigned to that machine, to continue to replicate paperclips. So not natural, not a conscious being, but just a really efficient machine. And we have a lot of these super intelligent machines out there already. We call them narrow AI. So there's the strong AI, which is artificial general intelligence, where it's generally more intelligent than humans at everything we do. But then what
are we defining as intelligence as? Because Christina talks about unconditional love. I just if you can look at every human.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, if you can look at any human with unconditional love, that's how you eliminate hate. And for me, that's like the purest form of intelligence, because so many of the problems we have cause out of lack of appreciation for each other, political war, like all the power, yada, yada, yada. So
I
it's
put that into the
like,
bucket of like human intelligence, because we can actually take into account all the needs of other humans as well, and the love element and all that thing that goes with it. When we talk about super intelligence, like humans intelligence beyond that as well. So if you actually can accelerate, put on steroids the ability to show your love and the ability to experience things, everything
that's
that
a
makes
good
us
thing,
human.
right?
Yeah, well, that's where transhumanism wants to achieve. We want to actually do more in beyond what our current biology is able to allow.
So super intelligence is the definition of it is more intelligence than what we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's pretty much, it's a basic transhumanist definition of intelligence and super intelligence. But yeah, you can see this has been applied everywhere now. This is Bill Hader, who's a comedian, and anyone can just take a video and apply this deepfake technology to make his impersonations better than what it can be. So this is him doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation, and when he's doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation, he actually can turn his face into Arnold. So this will have great benefits. Maybe even Sam McCool can run some of these, because he's a great impersonator and is able to do these. We can overlay his face with some deep fakes. But it could also cause a lot of mischief as well, especially in the context of political debates and campaigns. And in China, they have the social credit scoring, and people say that George Orwell's 1984 was meant to be a warning, not a guide. But it looks like the Chinese government have taken it as a guide in terms of being able to quantify the pro or con elements of every citizen that they've allocated a social credit score with. So
I wonder
they've already
what the
done lots of
suicide
pilots
rates
in major
are like.
cities.
Do you know what the suicide
that might be
rates are?
something. In Japan, it's a lot worse than China, but in China, there's also a lot of missing data points, which is kind of ironic given how much they're quantifying every citizen at this rate.
But if
they
you
are
have a
showing
low,
that if you have a low score,
rating.
well, they're looking to incentivize the right behaviors. So they're looking to have, say, programs, incentive programs to help you get to a higher score. So that's what they're trying to be, this all-knowing, all-powerful, all good view of their citizens. Although it's so hard because the actual party members aren't being measured in the same way.
Oh my
so
God.
they don't
Like,
apply this to
seriously.
themselves.
Like, ridiculous.
So it's double standards, right? So unless everybody is equally treated, then the algorithms can be inherently biased because
it's just the
manipulations that can be done.
The whole system is redundant because of what you just said. Like you lead by example.
Because you have it'd be like the Animal Farm sort of example,
Mind blowing.
Which is another one of George Orwell's books.
We studied that at school.
That have low scores.
It makes it a bit competitive too, doesn't it?
If you have friends that have low scores, then actually that drags your score down. So you're incentivized to find higher score friends.
Oh my God.
I don't like that one of the episodes of Black Mirror.
Yeah, exactly. The social credit score Black Mirror episode. And everyone's rating themselves and the interactions, and they're afraid to say what they really mean and think, because everything is being documented, analyzed through things like WeChat and Weibo, which is their WhatsApp and Twitter equivalents. And so that goes all to the Chinese government for analysis, and they're able to easily censor information, like Winnie the Pooh. Like, you're not allowed to say Winnie the Pooh or write Winnie the Pooh because they've banned the word, because people used to make fun of President Xi, that he looks like Winnie the Pooh. That's why they banned the term Winnie the Pooh. And now the entire character is unavailable in China.
Are you serious?
I think South Park is, South Park, they also made a satirical episode on it, and now South Park is banned.
Oh my
in
God.
China.
I worked on Winnie the Pooh and South Park, and it's like at Disney we used to talk about it, like all the content was banned in China. So what did they do? They had to re-engineer their strategy to teach English, and that's why they created the Disney English schools. I just heard Wikipedia has been banned too.
Wow.
Anyway, that's a whole other topic, isn't it?
Yeah, the NBA is well, because
God, please,
but it's sort of what you can do with the AI, sort of how you use it. You know, and Christina would also, you know, abide by that. So she was it's all about how you use the technology. You know, we can use it for good, like with cochlear implants. You know, that's integrating in the future with your smartphones so that you can do real-time translation. Think about how that works already with our AirPods. It's an extension of that, because cochlear implants help that, you know, different ability, as you would say it, Amber, into something that's sort of normal human hearing, but then you can also become superhuman by amplifying the sounds that come in. So you can actually hear the other side of the room in the future and be able to do that real-time translation in a foreign country, or if you want to do different hearing of the frequencies and be able to hear what whales are singing or dolphins and bats. So you'd be able to be, you know, have additional senses to the ones that we have in our range of senses.
So we could speak to the dolphins, maybe.
Yeah, we just need the equivalent of the translation going outwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm sure we can decipher that language as well, quite easily, just with some machine learning and understanding of the attributes. It'd be a really good business model for pets, that's for sure. Be able to like communicate with your pet. So the equivalent, the other sense is the visual sense, and this is the magic leap. And you know, when we look at smart devices, it's always been a bit gimmicky. You know, initially, and if you look at this one, it's actually, you know, the Magic Leap 1, and they spent billions and billions of dollars on this, and people are making fun of it because it makes you look like this, you know, arachnid spider, sort of with the multiple eyes and cameras pointing at you, and it reflects back to the Google Glass sort of problem with the glass holes that society rejected. But you need a company like Apple potentially to come in and make a product that's desirable. So, you know, this is the Apple AR glasses, a mock-up of what it might look like that will come out in the next couple of years. Basically look like a normal pair of glasses and use the infrared and also the scanners, the LiDAR technology that they miniaturize in iPads and place it in these glasses. So you'll be able to get a prescription version of these, but essentially it's augmented reality and it overlays information over your eyes. And that'll mean that you can say, look at someone and be able to do facial recognition and recognize people at parties and be able to talk to the right people if you're in a business sort of context, essentially bringing up their profiles and overlaying that over them.
No forgetting names anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Let me just push back my next meeting by 15 minutes or so, so I can sort of do a wrap up, and we can push to next month to continue this discussion, if that's okay.
Awesome. I saw a mock-up for the Apple glasses. It's like you carry it in a canister, and it's actually roll-up glasses. Like, you know, they like pop out. Did you guys see that?
Roll-up glasses.
Yeah, like literally it rolls up. You put it in a little like hexagon designed circular canister cylinder, put it on your keychain type thing. I think it was for Apple. I can't remember where I saw the mock-up though.
Oh, there'll be so many things coming out. Like the Apple session will be in September, I think, so, or October.
Nice.
But it'll be they'll come up with, you know, Apple tags. They might even do, you know, as one of those one last thing moments. They might do an introduction to this Apple Glass or the VR headsets they're coming out with. It'll be along those lines. So really exciting to see what's happening there. Yeah, other things like, you know, we talked about these augmented reality contact lenses as well. How do we actually put AR into our eyes, and, you know, the cybernetic eyes that we talked about, you know, transhuman eyes, let's call it, right? Basically embedding this technology in here. Quick couple of chats. Yeah. Okay. No worries, Rita. See you later. But yeah, we can continue on, I guess, in a month's time. we go back to the next session. The future slides I've got in here. There is some more on the super intelligence side of things.
So what have we got?
And we talk about the well-being, super well-being as well this time. And then we talk about what are the actions that we can do to take transhumanism forward as a movement. So yeah, let's do that. In the meantime, I'll set up that meeting with you, Amrita and Anuraj. We can talk about that comic book. That'd be awesome.
So we're going to do part 2 of this webinar?
Yeah, we'll do it for the next month's session.
So because you do this every week, don't you?
Yeah, but it's different topics.
Yeah.
It'll cycle back to transhumanism in the next month.
Okay, awesome. I asked a lot of questions. Sorry, I was just so fascinated.
Oh, that's fine. That was great. That's the way that these workshops were designed to be. And hopefully, Randy, if that was helpful as well, hopefully you were able to cook something up as well in the meantime. But
Okay.
I'll
So we're meeting on White Comics, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'll put in time with you, Amrita, Anuraj.
Anuraj. That's exciting. Woo!
Yeah.
So excited. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Yeah,
you are like a kaleidoscope of genius. I love it.
I appreciate it. It was really fun. And looking forward to our next session.
Me too. Bye.
Yeah,
bye, Xing
bye.
Xing.
Bye.
Net Club.